There is an immediate problem with the title of this video. You could not really eat 1 gram of antimatter. You could not place it on a spoon, hold it inside a normal container, or allow it to touch your mouth, because the antimatter would begin reacting with ordinary matter the instant the two made contact. That includes the container, it includes the surrounding air, and it includes you. So for this thought experiment, we have to imagine something physically unrealistic, that 1 gram of antimatter is somehow transported directly inside your body without touching any ordinary matter along the way. Before anything happens, we first need to understand what antimatter actually is. Ordinary matter is made from particles such as electrons, protons, and neutrons. Antimatter contains corresponding antiparticles. An electron has a counterpart called a positron, which has the same mass but the opposite electric charge. A proton has an antiproton, and atoms can even have complete antimatter versions. For example, normal hydrogen contains one proton and one electron. Antihydrogen contains one antiproton and one positron. From a distance, antihydrogen behaves surprisingly similarly to ordinary hydrogen. It has mass, it responds to gravity, and it can form an atom. The problem appears when antimatter encounters matter. A particle and its corresponding antiparticle can annihilate. Their original particles disappear, and their mass and energy are transformed into other particles and radiation. CERN experiments rely on exactly this principle when detecting antimatter, and antimatter must be kept away from ordinary matter to prevent annihilation. Now return to our impossible 1 gram sample. The moment the antimatter is allowed to touch the ordinary matter around it, annihilation begins at the boundary between the two materials. It does not need oxygen. It does not burn like gasoline, and it does not require a chemical reaction. This is a particle physics reaction. The antimatter particles encounter normal particles and convert their mass into enormous amounts of energy. And the word mass here is important, because antimatter does not somehow contain more energy per kilogram than ordinary matter. The extraordinary energy comes from annihilating both. Einstein's famous equation gives us the basic scale, E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared. The speed of light is about 300 million meters per second, and squaring that number gives an enormous value. But there's a detail that is easy to miss. If you have 1 gram of antimatter, complete annihilation requires approximately 1 gram of ordinary matter to meet it. So the total mass participating in the full annihilation is not 1 gram, it is 2 grams. 2 grams is 0.002 kilograms. Multiply that by the speed of light squared, and the result is approximately 1.8 times 10 to the 14 joules. That is 180 trillion joules of total energy. To give that number some scale, it is roughly equivalent in raw energy to about 43 kilotons of explosives. That comparison does not mean an antimatter event would behave exactly like a 43 kiloton conventional or nuclear explosion. The energy would initially appear in different forms and interact with the surroundings differently, but as a measure of total energy, the comparison tells us something important. 1 gram is an absurd amount of antimatter. At first, only the antimatter particles directly touching ordinary matter can annihilate, but those annihilations release extremely energetic particles and radiation. These products collide with nearby atoms, transfer energy into the surrounding material, and rapidly disrupt whatever was containing the remaining antimatter. That exposes more antimatter, more annihilation occurs, that releases more energy, and the process accelerates extremely quickly. Instead of the entire gram disappearing in one perfectly simultaneous event, we would expect a rapidly expanding interaction in which the antimatter and surrounding matter mix and annihilate. What actually comes out of these annihilations depends on which particles collide. An electron meeting a positron can convert their energy primarily into gamma-ray photons. A proton meeting an antiproton is more complicated because protons are themselves made from smaller particles called quarks. Their annihilation can produce several short-lived particles, including particles called pions. Some of these decay into gamma rays, electrons, positrons, muons, neutrinos, and other products. So the energy does not initially appear as one neat expanding ball of heat. It appears as a violent mixture of high-energy radiation and fast-moving particles. Those particles then begin interacting with the material around them. Some deposit their energy over relatively short distances. Others can travel farther before interacting. Gamma radiation can penetrate surrounding material, while neutrinos would escape almost completely without depositing much of their energy at all. Because of this, not every joule from the annihilation becomes local heat. Some energy escapes as penetrating radiation or particles. But even if only part of roughly 180 trillion joules is deposited nearby, the amount is still far beyond anything a biological system could survive. Please consider subscribing if you're enjoying the video so far. I'll be uploading many interesting videos regarding physics, tech, and chemistry. So if our fictional gram of antimatter somehow appeared inside a person, there would not be enough time for digestion, absorption, or any ordinary biological response. The relevant processes would be particle interactions occurring on extremely short timescales. The surrounding area would receive an enormous release of energy almost immediately. This leads to another strange feature of antimatter. 1 gram sounds tiny. A paperclip can have a mass of around 1 gram. A small amount of water can have a mass of 1 gram. Normally, we do not associate objects of this size with enormous quantities of energy. But ordinary matter also contains that same amount of mass energy. The reason a paperclip does not release tens of kilotons of energy is that almost all of its mass remains locked inside stable particles. Chemical reactions such as fire rearrange electrons in chemical bonds, releasing only a microscopic fraction of the total mass energy contained in the material. Even nuclear reactions convert only a fraction of the participating mass into released energy. Matter, antimatter, annihilation is fundamentally different. In principle, the mass of the annihilating matter and antimatter can be transformed into other forms of energy and particles. That is why the numbers become so large so quickly. So why do we not use antimatter as an everyday energy source? The biggest reason is that antimatter is extraordinarily difficult to produce and store. Scientists can create antimatter particles using particle accelerators, but the quantities involved are unbelievably small. CERN's antimatter experiments work with antiprotons and antihydrogen atoms, and the antimatter must be isolated from ordinary matter using carefully controlled electromagnetic traps and extremely high vacuum. CERN reports that modern experiments can store on the order of 100,000 antihydrogen atoms at once. That may sound impressive until we compare it with 1 gram. 1 gram of antihydrogen would contain roughly 600 billion trillion antiatoms. That is about 6 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. Compared with 100,000 trapped atoms, a gram is larger by roughly a factor of 6 quintillion. And storing more antimatter creates a difficult engineering loop. Antimatter cannot simply rest against the walls of a container. If it touches them, it annihilates. Charged antimatter particles can be suspended using electric and magnetic fields, while neutral antihydrogen can be confined using specialized magnetic traps. But the more antimatter you want to hold, the more demanding the system becomes. 1 gram is therefore not just a slightly larger version of a laboratory sample. It is enormously beyond the quantities currently handled in antimatter experiments, so our scenario requires not one impossible step, but two. First, someone must somehow obtain an entire gram. Then they must somehow transport it through ordinary matter without allowing it to touch anything. There is also a common misconception that antimatter creates some kind of mysterious anti-energy. It does not. Antimatter does not produce negative energy, and 1 gram of antimatter does not simply erase 1 gram of matter and leave nothing behind. Conservation laws still apply. The original matter and antimatter are transformed into new particles, and radiation carrying the energy, momentum, and other conserved properties of the original system. The mass appears to disappear only because that mass has been converted into other forms of energy. Another misconception is that 1 gram of antimatter would continue consuming matter indefinitely. It would not. 1 gram of antimatter can annihilate with approximately 1 gram of corresponding ordinary matter. Once the antimatter is gone, the annihilation stops. The explosion and radiation produced afterward can still affect much more surrounding material, but that material is not itself being converted entirely into energy. Antimatter is not a chain reaction that turns an entire planet into radiation. 1 gram enters. Roughly 1 gram of ordinary matter participates directly, and afterward, there is no antimatter left to continue the process. This is one reason antimatter is scientifically fascinating. Its enormous energy density comes with a built-in limitation. Before the energy can ever be released, the antimatter has to be created, slowed down, controlled, stored, and transported without touching the matter, making up nearly everything around us, and producing antimatter itself requires energy. Antimatter is therefore not a free source of power. If we manufactured it as an energy storage system, we would first have to spend energy creating it, while losing additional energy through the production and storage process. In that sense, antimatter would behave more like an extraordinarily difficult battery than a fuel source found naturally in a convenient tank. So what happens in our original scenario? The gram never reaches the stomach under normal physics. The first contact with ordinary matter begins annihilation. If some fictional technology bypasses that problem and places the entire gram directly inside the body, it immediately begins interacting with surrounding atoms. Approximately another gram of ordinary matter can ultimately annihilate with it. Together, those 2 grams contain around 180 trillion joules of mass energy. The annihilation produces high-energy particles and radiation, which rapidly transfer a large amount of that energy into the surroundings. The event would be catastrophic, and survival would not be possible.